Okay, in this exercise we are going to do part one of the Introduction to Controls workbook, and this involves creating a simple command button control and then linking it to the message box. So we're going to start out by going to the Developer tab, and we're going in the middle part of the Developer tab. You have this controls section, and we're going to click on the insert button right here, and we're going to create a command button, and that is down in the first row in the leftmost column of the ActiveX controls section. Now remember, we should always create our controls using the ActiveX section. Don't use the form controls. The form controls are for creating web forms, and we want to always use the ActiveX controls. And so we're going to click on this, and that will change the cursor to this little crosshair, and we're going to just drag over here and create a command button. Now you'll notice that it gives it a default label here. So whenever you create a new control, the first thing you do is click on the Properties window right here, and this will open up the Properties window. Let me resize that a little bit. And the first thing we do with whenever we create a control is give it a descriptive name. So by default, every control is given a name based on the control type and then some integer for it. So this would be command button 1. If I created another one, it would be command button 2, and so forth. But in general, though, you don't want to use the default name. You want to give it a name that is descriptive of what the button is used for. And this is because when you access these controls inside your Visual Basic code, it's kind of confusing just to see command button 1, command button 2. It's more helpful if the control has a name that is descriptive of what it's being used for. And so the first thing we're going to do is change the name. So we'll just click on the name field, and we'll start typing, and I'm going to call this CMD push me. And so in other words, you give it a name that kind of describes what it's going to be used for. Now this one is just kind of a dummy control. We're going to give it a label or a caption of push me. So I'm going to click on the caption field and type push me, and you'll notice that changes the name over here on the button. And so now when I see that inside the code, I can immediately recognize what that control is being used for. And you'll also notice that I used a 3-character prefix CMD. As mentioned in the controls chapter of the Excel VBA primer, you always want to use a 3-character prefix that describes the type of control it is, and that allows you to keep track of the different kinds of controls in your code. And this is not a requirement, it's just good programming practice, and it'll save you a lot of heartache in the long run. So now that I've edited the properties, we're ready to double click on this button. And when we do that, that automatically launches the Visual Basic editor, and it opens up the window associated with sheet number 1. That's the sheet where this control is located. And it creates an empty procedure. A procedure is like a little snippet or section of code that has a very specific task. And in this case, this code is going to be executed whenever the user clicks on this CMD push me control button. And so what I want to do here is type message box and then hit space. So what we're going to do is we're going to write some code here that launches the Visual Basic message box. And so we type MSGBOX and then hit a space, and then we'll just do a prompt. We're going to just type hello world. That is the And whenever you're writing code, that's kind of a standard first thing to write. We'll forget about the other options for a second. And now we'll go back to Excel. We'll save our changes. And when we created the control, it put us into what is called design mode. And when design mode, you can reposition your control, you can resize it, you can edit its properties. But when you want to actually use the control, you exit design mode and then click on that button, and there is our little hello world message. So it works. Now if we want to edit that code, there are a couple things you can do. You can just jump over to the Visual Basic Editor again, or you can go into design mode and double click on the button, and it'll pop you back here. For example, we might want to use some additional parameters associated with this message box object. And so if you do comma, it takes you to the second parameter here, which is an optional parameter, which is the type of button. And we'll talk about this more later when we cover message boxes in more detail, but for now I'm going to do VB exclamation. So these things listed here, this is called an enumerated type, and you have to input one option from a set of options that are listed here. And these are Visual Basic constants. They actually represent integers. But you don't want to have to remember a bunch of numbers, so it gives you these Visual Basic constants. So you can either type that out or click on it, and then we're going to do a comma, and then the next optional argument here is the title. So we're going to do a title, and we'll just say Excel VBA rocks or something. This is just, I'm creating a just kind of a default title here that'll pop up in the title bar. So now we're ready to try this out. We'll go back to Excel, save our changes, exit design mode, and push this, and so there's our title. Now it says hello world, and since we selected VB exclamation as the type, it puts this little exclamation rectangle here. And so that's how you create a command button on your Excel spreadsheet and link it to your code. And again, to recap, we used the insert option, we created our command button, then we used the properties window to change its name and create a caption. Then we double clicked on the button, and we just started typing the code, and that code is executed whenever the user clicks on that button. It's in response to a click event. We also did a very simple usage of the message box object, and again, the way that works is now whenever we click on that button, we get this little message box pops up.